Previously, I described an agio as being the difference between the market price of bullion and the market price of bank money. Smith, however, refers to an agio as any difference between, say, the market price of clipped worn coin and the market price of fresh, newly minted coin from which that old worn clipped coin was melted down into. Note that the old worn clipped coin may have consisted of currency flooding into the country from neighbouring states and other nations far and wide. I quote from Book 4, Chapter 3, Part 1, Digression concerning banks of deposit, particularly concerning that of Amsterdam. The money of such banks, being better than the common currency of the country, necessarily bore an agio, which was greater or smaller according as the currency was supposed to be more or less degraded below the standard of the state. The agio of the Bank of Hamburg, for example, which is said to be commonly about 14%, is the supposed difference between the good standard money of the state and the clipped, worn, and diminished currency poured into it from all the neighbouring states. End quote. So I define an agio to be any difference between the market price of manifestations of money, be that the difference between clipped, worn, debased currency and freshly minted currency, or indeed the difference between freshly minted currency and the bank money which was awarded in the books of the Bank of Amsterdam. Likewise, we could also describe the difference between clipped, worn, debased coin and the market price of bullion as an agio. So an agio is defined as the difference itself pertaining to prices of manifestations of money, not a specific difference between particular endpoints. Now, I have scarcely used the word as value within this discussion so far. There is a reason I have avoided this, and that is because the definition of the word as value can have multiple definitions and can mean different things to different people. In the final chapter, Chapter 71, Part 3 of Edward Gibbon's History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, Edward Gibbon states, "The value of any object that supplies the wants or pleasures of mankind is compounded of its substance and its form, of the materials and the manufacture." End quote. I agree with Gibbon. For example, the value of a piece of industrial machinery, such as a combine harvester, is what John Maynard Keynes, during the first half of the 20th century, called its utility, and perhaps Karl Marx may have called it its worth. But this item of modern technology and industrialization was not on the market to be purchased in the year 1776. So the value of £50,000 could not buy you a tractor or a combine harvester in the year 1776. Before the invention of tractors, the price of gold used to be measured in however many bushels of corn, wheat, oats, rye, barley, that it could be exchanged for on the market at the market rate of exchange. But after the propinquity of tractors within agriculture, the price of corn became much reduced. Latterly, much more corn could be swapped for the same amount of gold, assuming the price of gold to have been a constant throughout this time period. Although Smith is not 100% clear on this point, I define the value of an item to be the orchestration of the total amount of labor by hand or by machine, which is performed both to acquire the materials and tools for this object and the labor performed upon it, and also the labor involved in trade and transportation in order to deliver this object to the precise location where the consumer can acquire it as his property. I think my definition is a pretty good one. In the following quotation from Gibbon, as a continuation of what he previously said, Gibbon refers to its price, where its price is the price of any object. I quote, "Its price must depend on the number of persons by whom it may be acquired and used, on the extent of the market, and consequently on the ease or difficulty of remote exportation, according to the nature of the commodity, its local situation, and the temporary circumstances of the world." End quote. I agree again, and I also believe that this concise definition concurs with Smith's lengthier explanation about the same, which I may quote within the main body of this work. Book 2, Extinction Avoidance. I was in the process of describing how the price of worn clipped coin in the state of Hamburg may have borne an agio of 11% between that and the price of freshly minted coin. Likewise, we can also describe an agio as, say, a 5% difference between the bank price of money awarded by the Bank of Amsterdam and the mint price of bullion. Let the bank price of money be 5% below the mint price of bullion, and let the market price of bullion be 2% lower than the mint price of bullion. Thus, within these circumstances, where the mint price of bullion was 11.5% higher than the price of the clipped worn coin, the agio between the clipped worn coin and the market price of bullion will be 9.5%. Smith points out that for silver deposited in the form of Mexico dollars, where the fineness is known and ascertained, the bank will award a bank price as 22 guilders the mark, where a mark is a unit in weight. Juxtaposed with this, the price of the newly minted bullion, which was minted from those Mexico dollars, was 23 guilders per mark in weight. Thus, the bank price of money being lower than the market price of bullion, the bank would award a greater amount of guilders within bank credit than the bullion received as a deposit. It would appear that in the case of the Mexico dollar, the coin as a Mexico dollar was a form of bullion in itself of a very highly desirable worth, because its price was actually 2 or 3% higher than the mint price of bullion. I conclude that the Mexico dollar was a form of international currency which was more highly desirable in trade than the minted bullion from the city of Amsterdam.